Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we're going to talk about the most difficult weapon to unlock in the Name of the Tsar DLC. This is the Mosin-Nagant M91 Marksman. This is a bolt-action sniper rifle. It's pretty darn good, and we'll talk about whether or not it's worth the work to try and unlock this weapon and how it compares to some of the other rifles on the battlefield. One in particular, it is almost identical to. Now let's start off by talking about the unlock for this weapon. The first step is to get 50 kills with the Gewehr 98 Marksman rifle. This is pretty easy to do if you're a decent sniper. 50 kills should be no problem. You might even be able to pull it off in one single game. Especially if you're playing on a round of, say, front lines, it's pretty likely that you can crank out 50 kills in one match if you're a decent player. The second part of this assignment is to get 15 kills with the tripwire high explosive bomb. Now this is very difficult. You might think, you'll get it over time naturally, and you might if you end up playing with the tripwire a lot. Personally, I never run with the tripwire as I find the K bullet and the flare to be significantly more valuable, at least with my play style, and so I didn't really have a lot of experience using the tripwire bomb, and getting 15 kills with it is actually very difficult. However, the recently released October patch has made this easier. Prior to the patch, a tripwire bomb would not do enough damage in order for you to get a kill assist. This meant you had to get the finishing blow with your HE tripwire bomb every time prior to the October patch. No longer an issue. It should now deal about 85 damage to your opponent, and you will get a kill assist if you hit them with the bomb and your teammate finishes off the kill. This will make it a little bit easier than it was before, but it's still going to take you quite some time. Now, I found the fastest way of getting this assignment done was playing on TDM. Some of these close quarter maps where players are constantly running over the same lanes is a good way to get a lot of through traffic and lots of deaths, honestly, where you can die and respawn with tripwire bombs and try again. That being said, there were some games of TDM where I just wouldn't get any tripwire bomb kills at all, and that was frustrating. Ultimately, I'm not a big fan of TDM, so I just tried to do it naturally. On games with lots of infantry and narrow corridors, Argonne Forest was a decent one for getting tripwire bomb kills. It still took me a very long time, so I kind of just worked on this as I worked on a whole bunch of different assignments. But if you're really trying to grind this out, TDM will probably be the fastest way. So it's definitely one of the most tedious assignments out there. Is it worth the work? Is it worth the wait? Well, the Mosin-Nagant is a fan favorite rifle. I know a lot of people were excited about seeing this rifle in the game, and it's certainly not a bad rifle. In fact, it's got a lot of very promising stats. Now, if you're a fan of marksman optics in this game, that is a 4x magnified optic that doesn't give you scope glint, then this might be a perfect rifle for you. It mirrors the exact same muzzle velocity and damage stats of the Russian 1895. In fact, every single aspect of this rifle is identical to the Russian 1895 except for the reload characteristics and the optics available. So basically, if you like the damage drop-off for the Russian 1895, where the sweet spot starts at 60 meters and ends at 100 meters, which is a pretty decent sweet spot in general, then you might really enjoy this rifle. Now, personally, I'm still deciding on whether or not I like the Russian 1895 or this rifle better. The Russian 1895 sniper gives you the scope glint, but it gives you a little bit more accuracy and precision. And considering the sweet spot, you need to land a good solid body shot in order for it to work. I found the magnified optic on the Russian 1895 a little bit easier to use, but it's hard to say how many times that scope glint actually got me killed or put me at a disadvantage compared to the marksman scope of the Nagant. Now, the muzzle velocity of 820 meters per second puts this rifle up in the top tier of the fastest firing rifles in the game. This means you're not going to have to lead as much with this rifle compared to other ones. It's still not quite as fast as the Gewehr 98, which is one of my favorite rifles in the game. That one fires at 880 meters per second, but 820 is still plenty capable at most or pretty much all ranges. Now, one thing that puts the Nagant ahead of the Russian 1895 is the reload for this rifle, which is kind of an important thing to think about since it only has 5 rounds in its magazine. What's interesting about the reload, though, is that it has variable reload times depending on how many rounds you're going to reload. You can actually put a stripper clip in this weapon even if you have a single round left, but if you have 2 rounds left, you're going to reload the last 3 rounds individually. So it's kind of different. It's an interesting weapon to keep in mind how many shots you need to fire before you get that stripper clip versus the individual reloads. But it's kind of cool that DICE has taken the time to add in all these kinds of detail, even when it's to something like the reload animation, which I guarantee you 99% of the players probably won't notice the different reload characteristics of this rifle compared to some of the other bolt action rifles out there. You might just be focusing on the action on screen, hit the reload button, and not really pay attention to the animation, or the fact that sometimes it's going to give you that full clip when you only have 1 or 0 rounds left, or it's going to reload them individually at other times. And to be honest, I didn't really notice that for the most part until I actually started reading up the stats, and then when I was playing, I was like, oh yeah, there we go. There's the full clip reload, and there's the individual rounds. And from an artist perspective, there's probably like 10 to 20 different reload animations for this weapon, which is totally nuts, especially when you think about other games just running stuff like M4s or AR-15s, and they just pop the mag out, put a new mag in, done, like nothing else to worry about. The World War I guns require so much more artistic attention to detail. It's kind of nuts, and I almost feel bad for the devs as so much more work went into this aspect of the game, and probably a lot of players don't even notice it. Now, where are you going to want to use the Mosin-Nagant M91? There is also the infantry variant on this rifle. Personally, I don't really understand the point in using the infantry variants on bolt action rifles. They can be fun, and the benefits are basically like faster accuracy recovery between shots, so you could fire it a little bit quicker if you absolutely had to, but the sacrifice for scoped accuracy just isn't worth it in my opinion. So there's the infantry variant of this rifle, but I just don't really use infantry variants in general, so I'm just focusing on the marksman variant, and you'd want to use it in maps that give you that longer range engagement opportunity. If you think it's going to be mostly close quarters or aggressive recon, go for something with that close range sweet spot. And this map here, St. Quentin Scar, is actually a pretty good opportunity for this rifle, although if I was fighting between 2 points like consistently that were longer range than this, I might consider upgrading to the Gewehr 98 or the M1903. Those might be better long range options. And then if I was fighting more in the city and I still wanted to play scout class, I might pick the SMLE. But if for an all-around rifle where I wasn't necessarily sure which point I was going to be going to, then the Nagant is not a bad choice. And I couldn't help but notice that in many of the situations when it's raining and overcast, the Russian 1895 with the sniper scope is going to be pretty much just as good as this rifle, because that scope glint isn't going to give away my position, and I'm going to have the added magnification and accuracy of that 8x optic. Now, some people might prefer the marksman optic, but as I said before, trying to zero in on a body shot and get that perfect sweet spot hit is significantly more difficult for me with the marksman scope. You might have better eyes, you might have slightly better aim than me, in which case you could get away with the marksman scope, and that's not going to give you that scope glint even when it is sunny out. At the end of the day though, the differences between this rifle and the Russian 1895 are minute, and I think it sort of represents the fact that DICE might be running out of different ways to vary up their bolt action rifles in Battlefield 1. They've kind of gone through the whole gamut of sweet spot options at this point, and so we're starting to see some repeats of the same sweet spots, and unfortunately this rifle really just didn't differentiate itself from the Russian 1895 in enough ways out there, so it is kind of just like a Russian 1895 with a marksman optic, and that's about it, which is to me disappointing. I think DICE could have done some more interesting stuff by messing with the muzzle velocity, other than just different optic and slightly different reload. So it's not enough to make me go, oh wow, check out this brand new sniper rifle that performs totally differently. It just doesn't. I think DICE could definitely mess around with expanding the size of sweet spots. So instead of just doing the standard 40-meter range for a sweet spot, maybe increase that to 50 meters for some rifles or lower to 30 meters for other rifles. That would be kind of interesting and add something else into the mix. So if you already have the Russian 1895 and you're happy with that rifle, it's probably not worth going for the unlock on this weapon. But if you're a completionist or you just happen to go for tripwire HE bomb kills regardless, then you'll probably get this rifle unlocked, and it'll at least be another weapon in your arsenal that you can play around with. As always, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you and taught you something about Battlefield 1, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.